Renny Show is brought to you by Johnston Group, Vittorio Rossi, Trans-Canada Brewing, Lou Ferlin, Cambrian Credit Union, and Homefield.
Hello, everybody. I'm Sean Reynolds from Sportsnet, about to be joined by Ken Weeb from Sportsnet. Together, we are Kenny and Renny, and this is the Kenny and Renny post-game show after the Jets' 56th game of the season. A game that has our chat room absolutely stacked right now. People have a lot to say. I'm sure they should have a lot to say. I'll say this about that game. I don't think I've really said this that often this year, but tonight, to me, that is a game in which the Jets they just played a better team. I mean, at every turn in this game, the New Jersey Devils were the better team. They were the faster team. They seemed to be the more structured team. They seemed to be the more skilled team. One thing I liked about the Jets is it was a return to the kind of offense that we've seen from this team, rather than, you know, the idea of the snake charmer offense that we've talked about and the kind of perimeter offense we can see this team fall into. The two goals that they do get are goals that they fire the puck in from the point. They create havoc in front of the net. They capitalize on the puck getting to the front of the net. That's the kind of offense that Rick Bowness wants to see. But it's also the kind of offense that should lend itself to a pretty high shot count. We've seen that in the past, and that wasn't happening. I mean, the Winnipeg Jets get out of the first period, and they're up 2-1, and they carry that lead right into the third period. And it looks like another one of these games that the Jets are going to do the old rope-a-dope, right? They're going to come out and they're going to get a couple goals on their first couple shots. They're going to sit on that lead. They're going to be the second best team. This is the problem with that, and this is one of the reasons why so many times throughout the year, where we've addressed on this show the idea of the rope-a-dope that the Jets often play and have played to a lot of success this year. And again, I'll bring it up. We've talked about it. We've shown it on Hockey Night in Canada. The Jets are a team that have won a lot of games this season, that they've been the second best team. They've done the old rope-a-dope. They do it as good as anyone. But when you're starting to play the upper echelon teams in the league, and by point production, by what they looked like tonight, the New Jersey Devils are one of the upper echelon teams in the league. And the problem with that is if you get a couple goals on just a few shots throughout the first period that the Winnipeg Jets did, and then you kind of sit on that and you don't push back. I thought the Devils were the best team in the second period. I thought they were the best team in the first period. I think the Jets kind of pushed back in the third, but it was one of those things where they threw everything they had into it. They upped their risk profile kind of thing. But the problem with this is when you're playing real good teams who can score their way back into a game, and the Devils are that. You heard about it on the hockey broadcast. They're a team that is able to come back a lot in games. The rope-a-dope just, I don't think, works. It's not something you can count on. Like, if the Jets would have held on and the Devils wouldn't have scored in the third period and they won that game, you know, a lot of people would have walked out of it and they say, well, it's a great road game and this and that and whatever. But my counter to that would have been, we're supposed to be thinking about the playoffs now. And if the Winnipeg Jets took that game into a 7-game series against the New Jersey Devils, how many people think they would win a 7-game series playing like they did in that game, even if they would have held on to win that game 2-1? That's not what I see. That's a game that they could have escaped with 2 points. And if they would have, I guess I probably would have been okay with it. Why? Because look what's happening in the standings right now. We'll dig into that deeper, but the Jets needed a win tonight. As of right now, the Colorado Avalanche are 2 points back with 1 game in hand. As of right now, the Winnipeg Jets have fallen below the top 3 teams in the Pacific Division in the standings. The Jets needed a win here tonight, so maybe I would have been okay with the idea of, you know, 2 points is 2 points and however the Jets got it, but that wasn't the way you play to win a game. That was the way the Jets were trying to play to steal a game. And you know what you do? You know who you steal games from? You steal games from teams that are better than you. New Jersey Devils were a better team than the Jets on this night. They're a better team in the standings. It's going to be hard to argue. Some of you may try, Go for it if you'd like to, but would argue that the New Jersey Devils are a better team than the Winnipeg Jets. That's not what we saw on the screen here tonight. It's not what we saw in the standing. It's not what we saw from the style of play. It's not from what we saw from the speed out there. This wasn't quite as bad as that Buffalo Sabres game a little while back, where the Buffalo Sabres just seemed to be toying with the Winnipeg Jets. But this was one of those games where I thought, for the most part, the New Jersey Devils played their style of game, had the patience to hang on despite being down, had the patience and the confidence that they were going to get back into the game. That's exactly what they did, and they end up winning this game. I'll say it, wrap this up by saying exactly what I said at the beginning. The New Jersey Devils were the best team here tonight. It's as simple as that. And it's going to be hard to argue that the Winnipeg Jets at this stage are, hey, there was a conversation that we've had through, it's a thread that's gone throughout this season. Are the Winnipeg Jets an elite team? I think that the New Jersey Devils are an elite team. I don't think they are upper echelon elite. I think they're one of the elite teams in the league, though. And the Winnipeg Jets have a step to take to get to where the New Jersey Devils are. That's my take on it. Time to bring in Ken's take and start hearing more from your takes, because you got a lot of hot stuff going on in the chat room here. So time to bring in the man with the best music in the business, the man that was in the rink there tonight. Here comes Kenny. Hey, Ken, sometimes you got to hold people's hands through things here. Brass Bonanza here says to me, Columbus was the better team on Friday. What's the point here? I don't know how you could miss this. I think I pretty clearly said the New Jersey team is clearly a better team than the Winnipeg Jets. I thought it's a pretty strong statement. It's a pretty obvious statement. I don't think anyone thinks the Columbus Blue Jackets, who are in a battle for last place in the NHL right now, are at the same level as the Winnipeg Jets. I don't know how to make it any clearer to you. Maybe I'll write a thesis and send it to you in the mail. Conclude your email if you need me to explain it any further. I don't think I should have to, but maybe pick up on what I'm trying to put down here. Ken, what do you have to put down after that game?
Yeah, I mean, we learned the Devils are a very fast team. That's what we've heard a lot about them, and to be in the building, seeing them live, they were the faster team. I think that they made the Jets look slow at times, for sure. Certainly a couple of self-inflicted wounds by the Jets, certainly on the tying goal in the winner, but I would say that some strong net binding by Connor Hellebuyck helped them get into the lead, and they took advantage of a, mediocre backup. I don't like to, that's the way Mackenzie Blackwood has played this year. I mean, he's got a sub 900 save percentage, and his goals against is 312. The Jets scored on a slap shot from the point. Nice screen by Mason Appleton. There's no doubt about that. But on a rebound, which was tipped. I mean, Blackwood couldn't do anything on the Cole Perfetti goal, but I mean, the Jets didn't make life difficult enough on Mackenzie Blackwood. The Jets had a clear schedule advantage in this game. The Devils played yesterday in Pittsburgh, and the Jets were waiting for them, and they did not look like the more well-rested team for almost the entire evening. And eventually in the third period, this game was tilting. The Jets were fine in the first. They were outshot 10-6, I think, and the game was, I thought the Devils had probably a slight edge in play. Second was mostly even, and in the third, it was not even close. The Jets were lucky to be in the game, to be quite frank. Their power play had an opportunity to get them into the game and tie the game after falling behind, but for me, I mean, two bad turnovers. I mean, one is, Kyle Connor is not hard enough on the puck behind the net. He has his pocket picked, and that leads to a goal. And then Dylan DeMello goes for a reverse, and Jesper Boquist gets to the puck first. I mean, those are plays that can't be made. If you're in a tight game against a team that, as you mentioned, I mean, like, the Devils are not at the upper echelon of the elite, but they're 10 points clear of the Jets, and for much of the night they showed why. I don't think they got goalied by any stretch in the imagination. The Jets did not generate enough scoring chances. I mean, this is one of those nights where the fancy stats I don't think tell the story. The
not at all.
High danger chances at 5-on-5 or 10-9 for the Devils, and expected goals for the Jets should have won the game 2.52 to 2.26, and I don't think that was really. I don't see the Jets. I did not see the Jets as the better team, and I don't think any member of the Jets, not the ones we talked to after the game, shared that view either. So they did well enough to be in the game. And here's the other thing about the Jets right now, Sean. We've talked an awful lot about their inability to get any offense from the third and fourth lines right now. If you didn't know how things were going from the Jets and you just happened to tune in today, the puck squirts over to Kevin Stenlund, basically with a wide open net, and his stick explodes in his hand, and the puck goes off the post. I mean, the Jets make that a 3-1 game at that point, and then the Devils have to open up the risk profile. Instead, they didn't have to. I mean, they came back in the game and basically took over the game. And the Devils also, too. I mean, Savage says it here. I mean, the Devils hit 3 posts themselves. So, I mean...
4.
Was it 4? Okay, well,
it was
yeah.
4.
There you go.
And then the 5th was off the post and in.
Right. So, I mean, again, it's... like I said, the Jets were outplayed. And like you said, I mean, on tonight, there was no question who was the better team. It's super interesting. I mean, the Jets, I think, they've scored, I think, give me 1 second. I want to go to the notes here. In the last 12 games, they've gone 5-7. They have scored during that time 28 goals. 28 goals in 12 games. That's slightly over 2 per game. We've talked about team defense, and the Jets have made a lot of improvements in those areas. Right now, their offense is not doing the job. I mean, people can say whatever they want. I mean, a lot of people unhappy with the juggling, some people happy with it. Right now, the Jets are not scoring easily, Sean. I agree with you to some degree. There were some chances there, but I didn't see enough generation. I didn't see much chemistry at all. Rick Bonus is, let's see what his line there was. Sorry to laugh, but he was not quite as direct, but this time he said more by saying less. He said we had a lot of guys who weren't going, something to that magnitude here. A couple guys were off tonight, so we'll have to take a look at that. I know some people in the chat room are expecting me to jump to the defense of Pierre-Luc Dubois as the president of the quote-unquote fan club, the fan part being the fan of the way he plays his game. Right now, Pierre-Luc Dubois, Sean, we saw this movie last year at times. I think right now he's got 5 points in his last 12 games, and he has not been as effective or engaged or physically, imposing his will physically the way that he has when he is at his absolute best. And that's a problem for the Jets because they don't have many players who play that game. And when he doesn't play it, they don't have a lot of people playing it. So he needs to be a whole lot better. There's no doubt about that. Like I said, what I would lean on is that Pierre-Luc Dubois has had an excellent season for the Jets. This is something we've talked about a lot. And Sean, this to me goes back to our conversation with Aaron Portzline. Like, is Pierre-Luc Dubois a $7 million player or is he a $10 million player? There's still a wide disparity between when he's on his game and when he is not, right? In terms of his production.
Oh, yeah.
And right now the Jets need Pierre-Luc Dubois to be at the top of his game. And now he's, in game 55, he dipped slightly below that point a game pace. And the Jets need him to get back to the player he was, going into the break and prior to that. So I know some people that have been asking, including Crystal Morgan. We don't have an update on Nikolai Ehlers. Rick Bowness did not have an update from the trainers. He left the game with 8 minutes and change to go. It was quite a battle with Brendan Smith, and some people thinking that Ehlers was innocent. I don't think that that's actually the case. Ehlers gave him one of the cross-checks early. There's no doubt Smith gave more of the cross-checks than he took. And then he was obviously tripped. I mean, Smith, it was kind of... dirty might be strong, but he definitely took the skates out from behind of an unsuspecting player. And I think, Sean, I don't know what you saw in the replay, but to me it looked like Ehlers hit his head on the ice. So
Ehlers,
or what did you see?
Ehlers hit his own stick against his face. That's why I thought he was holding his face, but it's also why I didn't think it would be a big deal. The only thing that I can think...
I thought the back of his helmet hit the ice, no?
Well, it popped and hit the ice as well, but I thought that the reaction that I saw from him had more to do with his own stick hitting his face.
I thought he grabbed the back of his head, to me.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I was thinking that the issue for him was the fact that when that leg got pulled out, that maybe it was a groin thing or something like that. I don't know. It didn't, even over and over again on the replay, it was hard to look and find what the issue was, right? And so if he did hit his head on the back of the ice, I can tell you this, being someone who suffered a concussion from going into the back of the boards and hitting the back of my head and then doing the thing where I stood up and fell down and stood up and fell down and kept doing that before, you don't have to hit the back of your head too hard in order for that to happen. So it could be that. And I definitely, when it comes to brain injuries, you don't need the biggest hits. So I don't want to sound like I'm dismissing that and his head hitting the back of the ice. But I had thought it was maybe more an issue with his groin. But then again, when he did go to the bench and you kind of saw the way that he grimaced, maybe it does have more to do with the concussion. If so, that's no good, because we know how that can go. That is a huge problem, especially heading into the trade deadline. Didn't look good. Ken, I'll say this. We'll dig more into Ehlers. You're looking good tonight, as you always are. One of the reasons Ken always looks good is because he heads on down to see Frankie and the boys of Vittorio Rossi, who always do him up right. I saw someone last time say, when I was dressed like this before the show, not even Frankie and the boys could clean up what I've got going on here. I assure you, you will see it tomorrow night, because it's a Sportsnet game. I will be hosting that game. You will see the work done by Frankie and the boys and how quickly this can be cleaned up. It happens like magic, and that's because Frankie and the boys of Vittorio Rossi, they are magic. So head on down to Corden Avenue, go see Frankie and the boys of Vittorio Rossi. Tell them Kenny and Renny sent you. I want to pop back to Pierre-Luc Dubois there just quickly, Ken, because you've been talking about him. This was the issue, and I think we said this earlier on. Now, when Pierre-Luc Dubois was a point-per-game player earlier on in the year and he was stacking things up, we were saying, I mean, a guy who plays the way he does, draws the penalties that he does, takes the penalties that he does, gets under the skin of the other team the way that he does, and produces points like that. You're right. You're talking about a guy who's like a $9-10 million player. But the problem with Pierre-Luc Dubois, as I've seen throughout his career, as I've seen throughout his time with the Winnipeg Jets, is he goes to sleep for a little while. And if you want to take a look at what's happening right now, I mean, I think it's his last goal that he scores. You said 5 points in his last 12 games. Well, one of those is a pass to nobody that he tried to make that a defender redirected in. It's a little bit of a lucky goal. Now you go to the net and good things happen, and a good thing happened there. But it's not like Pierre-Luc Dubois is seeing the net and blowing it past the goaltender right now. It's not working. And to your point, I mean,
3 goals and 2 assists in 12 games. 3 goals, 2 assists in 12 games.
And so the 12-game mark is important, and we're going to have to talk about that because it's been brought up a couple times here. I may have even started a couple of comments. Here we go. Manny France has 5-7 in the last 12 games. Well, there you go. While Pierre-Luc Dubois has kind of gone to sleep here, so have the Winnipeg Jets. 6 of those games against the East, including losses to the Wings, Flyers, Blue Jackets, Canadians, and Sabres, and only 1 win versus a 500-plus team. I'll go further on this. So over those 12 games, 3 of those games are against teams over the playoff line. 9 of those teams are sub-playoff teams that the Winnipeg Jets played and they're 2 games under 500 against them. Ken, I think the importance of this, and something, this is just a conversation I've wanted to have. I want to launch into it because other people are starting to pick up on it as well. Scooter says maybe it's not worth spending assets, whereas Cameroon says Chevy should not swing big and heavily mortgage the future. Jets need 1 or 2 middle 6 forwards. Lawson Krause are similar. Depth defensemen like Luke Shen. I'll say this, 5 and 7. We had a conversation, Ken, heading into the All-Star break about the Jets, and that it was important, and it was going to be important over this month of February, that the Winnipeg Jets show Kevin Cheveldayoff that they are worth investing in. Now, people know our thoughts on this. I think Kevin Cheveldayoff has doubled down time and time again on this core. And at this stage, he either believes in his core or he doesn't believe in his core. And if he believes in his core, he's got to go all in. He's got to swing big if he believes in them. But you have to think, this has been a month now. The 12 games basically take us to the middle of January. In the last month, the Winnipeg Jets, it's not just that they're not a playoff team. They're a sub 500 team, which means they are way below a playoff team over that time. The Winnipeg Jets, as of late, are showing Kevin Cheveldayoff the message that they are sending them is that they are not worth investing in. Ken, I know you've written a little bit about this. Where do you think Kevin Cheveldayoff's head is, or where should his head be at this stage, given how his team is playing and what they're showing him going into the trade deadline, which is ticking down quickly?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, Sean. I mean, I'm not going to, change my opinion. I think that the Jets, based on where their contract situation is, we know they're not going to choose to rebuild. So, I mean, I think the message is the Jets are showing Kevin Cheveldayoff, not why they should invest because they're rolling, and people suddenly are saying, oh, you can't bring in people because you might disrupt the chemistry. It's almost like a cry. I mean, it's not a personal cry for help, but I think that some of the Jets' biggest issues have been on display during this stretch of time. So I think it is important to invest in this group because the group needs investment, not just now, but into the future because of the pieces they're going to be potentially losing in the next summer or two. That's why, I mean, I would say now more than ever. I mean, we were joking on the way to the rink today. This was the Timo Meier Bowl, and it's obvious which team could survive without Timo Meier. But at the same time, the Devils, just imagine the Devils being able to add Timo Meier to that outstanding forward group. For the Jets, what were they lacking tonight? A big, strong power forward that can get to the net and skate in a game with pace. So this is interesting to me, Sean. Yesterday, this quote from Nate Schmidt was an absolute all-timer when I asked him about the deadline. This is what he said after the practice at the practice rink. This kind of decides where you are as a team. This is really one last little audition before the deadline to say, hey, this is what we are against really good teams. And guess what? Tonight they didn't stack up well. So, I mean, I know what you're saying. I would understand why there would be a reluctance. But the Jets' problem is if they're reluctant now, what are they going to do in the offseason? Like, they're going to need help moving forward, right? Not just today. But they need someone that they can sign long-term, whether that's an internal person or someone like a Timo Meier. I mean, they still have important pieces. I'm not up here saying the Jets are suddenly a terrible team. I mean, people going crazy. I mean, there's reason for concern. But the Dallas Stars, do we think the Dallas Stars are a bad team, Sean? Of course not. The Dallas Stars
they've
lost.
Been showing it lately.
You think because they went 2-2-5, they're suddenly a bad team? I mean, they have flaws. It's the same thing we said about the Jets. They have flaws.
This is a tricycle race for first in the West right now. And it hasn't shown how bad the Winnipeg Jets have been lately. And the only reason it hasn't is because the Dallas Stars have been terrible. But all of a sudden, this is now where it's showing. The Winnipeg Jets are in 5th place in the West all of a sudden. And now they're in a position where if the Colorado Avalanche win their next game, they're in 6th place. We've been talking so much about the Winnipeg Jets competing for first place in the West right now. They're closer to being in 6th place than they are to being first right now. And the reason we haven't shown over this last little while that the Jets have really
hang on a second. They're 3 points out of first. They're 3 points out of first and 6 points clear of being out of the playoffs.
Well, they've got they're closer to fifth place than they are.
Sorry, yes.
Sorry. And the Edmonton Oilers are only 1 point behind them, although they've got one game in hand. The Edmonton Oilers are seventh place right now. So they're 3 points back of first place. They're 1 point out of seventh place.
Fair.
That's if the Colorado Avalanche win their game that they have in hand. But this whole idea that we've been talking about, like someone said this earlier on, people are scared of playing the Winnipeg Jets. Who's scared of playing the Winnipeg Jets right now? You don't think? I know the arguments that go in that direction. Pierre-Luc Dubois can be a beast, and Connor Hellebuck can steal a series. But if you're playing the Edmonton Oilers, you're scared of Connor McDavid. If you're playing the Colorado Avalanche, you're scared of everyone. If you're playing the Dallas Stars, you're scared of Jake Ottinger, and you're scared of Jason Robertson and a lot of the players on that team, Miro Heiskanen. Like, go up and down the list. The Winnipeg Jets aren't this. This is what happens in markets. Teams fall in love with their own guys, and they just think their guys stand above everybody else. I don't know that there's a lot of teams who are looking out there, especially the way the Jets have played after the last little while, that are looking and are scared of the Winnipeg Jets. But to go back to the original point, like, the Dallas Stars have not been a good team as of late. The crazy part about all this, someone had said this earlier, and I'll bring this up. Alec Beatty says, Renny, a week ago you said the Jets are making the playoffs unequivocally. Time for you to check your receipts. I don't think it's time for me to check my receipts. I think the Winnipeg Jets are still going to make it. I think the Winnipeg Jets are going to finish probably third or second in the Central Division, which is where I had them pegged. Third. I had them pegged at the beginning of the year in the Central Division. Listen, as bad as the Jets have been, the Minnesota Wild have been terrible as well. The Minnesota Wild had the potential. They were 7 points back with 4 games in hand. Now they're 4 points back. They've fallen based on the amount of games that they had in hand. They're not making up that ground.
But they just won 2 in a row after a bad loss, though. They also just won 2 in a row after a bad loss. The Jets won 3 in a row just not that long ago, right? Sure.
Like it's I don't look at the Minnesota Wild. I'm not scared of them. And there's too many teams to pop up here. But here's the deal, and we've talked about this in the past. Where this has shown, where the Jets have been really bad, is it was the Jets and the Dallas Stars and kind of everybody else. Vegas had entirely fallen apart. Seattle had a little bump down. The Edmonton Oilers had fallen right out of the playoffs. Now, all of a sudden, all of these teams are starting to pass them. Why is that significant? Because when you get a certain amount of team that pass by you, now it's really hard to climb past everyone. Because not only do you have to play really, really good to get above teams, but you need some, if not most of those teams to play bad in order to climb above them. You let teams pass you, and it's problematic. The Winnipeg Jets haven't been good right now. The Dallas Stars haven't been good right now. I'll say it again. It is a tricycle race for first place in the West. The first place team in the West would be a wild card team in the East. That's how bad it is right now. But if we're going to get into this conversation, we need to dig deeper into it of whether the Jets should do something or not. Someone earlier on said the West is wide open. Of course the Jets should go for it. Duh. Well, the fact that everyone in the West is bad, that means you should mortgage your future. Like, this is the thing I'm thinking of, Ken. I think the only way the Jets can go for it and swing big is mortgaging the future. And right now, I think that it was brilliant that Nate Schmidt said that, because I'm wondering what's been happening here. I think Kevin Cheveldayoff has been out there trying to make trades with term. He's not like the rest of the guys. He's not just trying to pick up a guy and then lose him at the end of the year. He's trying to get a guy with term. I think the reason that he hasn't pulled the trigger yet is because it's hard to get that. It's hard to get Timo Meier and get Timo Meier locked down. You don't know if he's going to do that. And if you bring him in and mortgage your future and he doesn't stick around, then you're going to lose. You're in the same position with him as you're in with Pierre-Luc Dubois on the exact same timeline. So that's a tough situation to pull into play there. But I wonder, Ken, if in this time that Kevin Cheveldayoff's been trying to improve the team and do so with term, in the meantime, if he can't find term and Kevin Cheveldayoff is faced with the very simple question, do I improve this team and to a large degree mortgage the future to do it, to take a really big swing? Or do I just stand pat and give this team a chance to show me what they've got? And if they do nothing with it, then I just tear it all down, move everybody for assets and really try and set myself up for the future. I'm starting to think more and more that that's becoming the idea for him. I said this, and I've said it numerous times on this show. If $9 million in cap space and them moving Nathan Smith and Brian Little's contract to the Arizona Coyotes to free up all that space, if they're not going to spend that cap space, what was it all for? If they don't spend it, the answer will have been that Kevin Cheveldayoff took a look at what this team is doing right now, what it's doing, what it's looking like heading into the playoffs, and decided this is not a team worth investing his future in to create a better present.
Yeah, I mean, that's also problematic in itself, is it not? I mean, like we saw it already this week. I mean, why are the Minnesota Wild helping the I mean, this is interesting to me. I mean, I don't want to get off topic here, but Bill Guerin helped the Toronto Maple Leafs cut the salary of Ryan O'Reilly in half for a fourth-round draft pick? Why is he helping other teams get better? Unless he didn't want to see Ryan O'Reilly in the Central Division. I know they have some cap space, but to me, that was a bit of a head-scratcher.
Well, no,
I know they want to get future assets, but
they did a really good job. In the end, Russo wrote an article about it. They ended up purchasing a pick for extremely cheap. Like if you break down and we do this.
Oh, I know it's only X amount of actual money, but
it's to me more than anything. All he did was he moved a little bit of money and bought a pick. As simple as that.
Okay, I mean, I thought they were in the market for Ryan O'Reilly, and then they're helping someone else get him. I mean, that was the other thing that was confusing to me. Anyways, I'm sure every team in the Central is happy that Ryan O'Reilly is not in the division in the playoffs. That's neither here nor there. But, Sean, your point is valid. I mean, if the Jets are trying to load up here, I mean, I agree with you. I mean, they're not going to – if they can go out and get a Jacob Chychrun, no, this is interesting. I mean, we always talk about under the radar. And I know that our colleague Elliot Friedman mentioned – in 32 Thoughts this week that he was curious about maybe the Jets being one of those teams that might be interested. A guy like Meyer and a guy like Chychrun, those guys have term. So, and I think the Jets are going to be, we've been talking about forwards a lot. I won't be surprised if they try to upgrade their top four on the back end, whether that's Chychrun or somebody else. Chychrun's obviously the guy with term. And you and I mentioned Colton Parayko the other day. And yes, there are some risks attached, but I would still think that Colton Parayko would be a guy who'd be a great partner for Josh Morrissey during the the term of his contract, which lasts another 7 years. But the original point, if you load up the cap space, you need to use it. I mean, you don't need to use every single penny if that's the way it goes. But I mean, if not now, then when? I mean, I just don't know. I get it. I mean, the Jets the best team in the West? Not today, they aren't. But with a couple upgrades, they certainly remain in the discussion. I mean, I understand your point about Dallas. I mean, Dallas is still plus 37 in goal differential. Jets are plus 29. These are still good teams. Those are among the best numbers in the NHL. That's only one stat, but a lot of those teams need to improve. I mean, there's no doubt. We said this from the beginning. This is what we said. All of these teams qualify as good teams, but they all have flaws, right? They all have flaws in the West. I mean, I think there's teams in the East that have flaws. I mean, but that's, again, neither here nor there.
I just think I really don't like how the Dallas Stars and the Winnipeg Jets have responded to success this year. And I think Rick Bowness says it absolutely perfect. There's a responsibility that comes with being a first-place team, right? You get there and it becomes, we didn't just get to the top of the mountain. We're going to keep climbing. You know what? We made it to the top of the mountain. Let's plant a 100-foot pole at the top of the mountain and start shimmying up that pole to see if we can get even higher. And a team like the Boston Bruins is doing exactly that. And then you've got a team like the Carolina Hurricanes that is chasing them and trying to get at them, even though what the Boston Bruins are doing is absolutely audacious. They want to try and catch them. And then you've got the New Jersey Devils who, fell flat on their face at some point and got up and dusted themselves off and are running as hard as they possibly can. And then you've got the Toronto Maple Leafs doing what they're doing. Like, there's all these teams doing this. The Dallas Stars and the Winnipeg Jets have been faltering time and time and time again against bad teams down the stretch over the last month here. And it's just, I look at this and I think, if Rick Bowness says that there's a responsibility that comes with being a first place team, it's unequivocal that the Winnipeg Jets and the Dallas Stars have failed to live up to that responsibility. The Dallas Stars right now are first place in the West by the lack of a team with the capability of pushing them. But at this stage now they're coming, right? And this is the tricky part. Now a race that was basically, it started out as 3 teams, right? It started out as the Jets and the Dallas Stars and the Vegas Golden Knights. And the Vegas Golden Knights really, really fell apart at some point, and they dropped out of that. And then it was down to 2 teams. And then those 2 teams have either not been taking this seriously or have forgotten their game or can't handle the responsibility of it or aren't taking that responsibility very serious, whatever it happens to be. But now all of a sudden, those 3 teams in first place, second place, and third place teams in the Pacific Division are ahead of the Jets. The Colorado Avalanche, who had lost, 8 of 9 games at one point, have woken up since then. Look, I didn't think this would be possible, Ken. When the Jets went into the break, they were 7 points up on the Minnesota Wild and 8 points up on the Colorado Avalanche. And I said, if those teams won those games in hand, because they both had 4 games in hand, the Minnesota Wild would be 1 point ahead of the Winnipeg Jets and the Colorado Avalanche would be tied with them. And I said, now let me burst your bubble here. They're not going to win all their games in hand. But I didn't think for a second, Ken, that this quickly after the break, the Colorado Avalanche would be 2 points behind the Winnipeg Jets with a game in hand. Like, they've closed it. It's crazy they've closed it. Anyways, we're having this conversation. We need to bring someone else in on this conversation. Let's do it and bring in Mike McIntyre from the Free Press, who's also there with you, Ken. Mike, it's great to have you here. I'd like to have you weigh in on what's happening right now with the Winnipeg Jets, with the West in total. I referred to it as a tricycle race for first place earlier on. I don't know what you're seeing here right now, but the Dallas Stars don't look like a conference-leading team to me. The Winnipeg Jets don't look like a conference-leading team to me. I don't know what's happening here in the West, but where do the Jets fit in all of it?
Well, I'd prefer the term turtle derby, Sean. I mean, any of those would apply. But the good news is for the Jets, in that because there's no runaway favorite, nobody's leaving anyone in the dust, that the Jets can go through a 5-7 stretch and still only be 3 points out of first place. And to go back to the point you just made a few minutes ago about maybe Kevin Cheveldayoff's approach, let me kind of offer the hot take. I think if Kevin Cheveldayoff is content to take a stand pat or quiet approach at this trade deadline, then to be perfectly honest, he should step aside and have someone else kind of take a run at this team. To me, the fact that nobody's running away with the West and that the Jets can go through a skid like this, they're still one of the best teams in the West. They may not look like it. The fact is the West is not very good, especially when you compare it to the East. And if you're the Jets, why are you not thinking we could win 3 rounds of the playoffs and get to the Stanley Cup final? And at that point, anything could happen. I think if you're Kevin Cheveldayoff, you should be moving mountains to improve the team here and now, and not thinking about 2 years from now, 3, 4, 5, because let's be honest, should Kevin Cheveldayoff even be here in 2, 3, 4, 5 if the same process just keeps playing itself out? To me, the West is as winnable as it's ever been. The Central is as winnable as it ever has been. The Jets are clearly struggling, but kind of to Kenny's point, I see this as a cry for help. They need some added resources thrown their way. They need a bone or two, and now it's incumbent on management to help this team out.
Let's get into our lamplighter of the game. We'll start with you, Mikey. What was the goal of the game for you?
Well, I mean, the Jets, they came out, and I liked their first period. They certainly woke up, I think, after the midway mark of the period. They get those 2 goals, and you think, hey, maybe they're going to find some of that offense that they've been starving for lately. But their lack of finish right now is certainly jarring. That this team is really having trouble scoring. They're not getting a whole lot of depth scoring. And unfortunately, the power play has gone ice cold. Another 0 for 3 night tonight. I think you have to look at what the Devils were able to do. And to me, those 2 quick goals in the third period. I mean, the whole game just turned there. As Rick Bowness says, 2 self-inflicted wounds, 2 goals that end up in the back of their net, and a New Jersey team that had every right to be tired, having played a night ago. The Jets gave them all kinds of energy and life. And I mean, to be honest, the Jets look like the tired team, not the team that's had 2 days off here in the Big Apple to rest up. Obviously the play behind the net with DeMello and Lowry, 2 guys, let's face it, that are normally very reliable, certainly in their own end, and, not the usual suspects. And yet they had trouble kind of handling that puck. And, it ends up kind of a whiff shot that beats Connor Hellebuck. To me, that just kind of sums up the night in a nutshell. And I suppose that's, if you want to look at the Jets end of things, certainly the Cole Perfetti goal, I think, agree with Merle. That would be the lamplighter, I guess, from the Jets' perspective. Unfortunately, though, the Jets have been seeing the other team light the lamp a little too often, and they haven't been doing it nearly enough.
No doubt. Ken, what do you got?
Yeah, for me, it's the Perfetti goal, but not because he's on the doorstep for a backdoor tap, but he went to the place that you need to get to. Sean, you talked about this right out of the opening. I mean, everything about that play. I mean, Josh Morrissey, excellent job sealing the boards, getting the puck over to Neil Pionk. Mark Scheifele gets to the net, tips the puck. Perfetti goes to the nose to the grind, gets to the front, and buries it. But the more important thing for me, we talk about secondary scoring. I mean, Perfetti's a top 6 player, but he's considered to be a complimentary scorer. It's his first goal in 9 games. I mean, the Jets need Cole Perfetti going, and he was going tonight. I mean, a lot of people talking about skating. I mean, hey, Cole Perfetti lost the foot race on the empty netter. There's no debating that. That is what happened. He had the lead, and the other guy passed him. Right. But here's the other part about Perfetti that I don't know how people have forgotten this, and maybe they haven't, but, I mean, this is a player who needed to add a quarter to half a step, but he didn't skate much this summer because of the injury, the back injury and the shoulder injury. I mean, he needs a huge summer of training here to add to his speed. I mean, we always talk about his ability to anticipate. I mean, he is an incredibly smart player, but he's going to have to add a little bit of skating. That's always sort of been the thing about Perfetti. It's why he was available 10th overall, and it will be something that he will continue to work on. The kid is motivated to get better. So, I mean, I know some people have been mentioned Perfetti in the potential trade for Meyer. I mean, is it possible they have to consider him? Sure. But Kevin Cheveldayoff doesn't want to include Cole Perfetti unless he absolutely has to. And again, that's just a quick thought about that subject, but lamplighter is definitely him. I mean, great pass by Michael McLeod between the legs, but it's hard to give a lamplighter when Miles Wood basically flubbed his shot through the 5-hole. I mean, Connor Hellebuck was beside himself in the room as he after he finished the interview. He was like, sometimes you're in perfect position and the guy fans on the shot and it goes between the legs. I mean, those are the facts. I mean, anyways, Perfetti is definitely the lamplighter brought to us by the good folks at TransCanada Brewing.
No doubt. And hey, if you want to share with us your lamplighter, you probably should, because if you do, you're automatically entered to win an 8-pack of frosty, delicious lamplighter amber ale from our friends at TransCanada Brewing. If you can't wait for Kenny and Renny and Mike tonight to hand one out to you, head on down to TransCanada Brewing Company. Join them in their tap room at 11290 Kenniston. Lots of beers, lots of great food, delicious stuff. Great job on that tonight, guys. Kenny, I'll start with you on this. Do you have a Johnston Group got you covered play of the game?
That is a good question. I would say you could start with Mike if he has one, or if you have one.
Well, I'll start, and then I'll pass it on to Mike. And maybe you should probably get prepared here, Ken. If you're late with
I'm just trying to get on the air, and I've been waiting to tell you. We talk about the struggles in the West. Hey, Vegas has won 5 in a row. They're not struggling coming out of the break. They've been hot. But again, going into the break,
for a while.
Right. So that's what I'm saying, Sean. I mean, my quick point to you is that all of these teams have had up and down stretches. I mean, the truth is probably somewhere in the middle, right? I mean, I think that also applies to the Jets right now. Same to Dallas, same to Vegas, even though right now they're the hot team. I mean, all of these teams, and originally, I mean, we never expected the Jets to go wire to wire like we did in 17-18. So this shouldn't be a huge surprise, but all these teams need to improve. Anyways, that's another rant on another subject.
I agree with that. I'm not going to go there. I'm going to go with running man on this. I think the goalposts had the Jets covered as much as anybody
There you go.
did tonight. 4 goalposts. It was getting a little ridiculous for a while there. They came, fast and furious. I'll hand that out. Mike, did you have anything tonight that stood out to you?
Well, on the reverse side was the equipment malfunction of Kevin Stenlund. They may want to check his batch of sticks there. Talk about a worst case scenario. And to your point, Kenny and Connor Hellebuck, I'm sure the frustration is added. He sees a guy whiff on a shot, it goes in, it's a game winner. Stenlund whiffs because his stick explodes and goes wide. I mean, I thought there was certainly, the Jets on the PK again, which we don't talk about a whole lot. The Jets have continued to be really good on the PK. And guys, I thought Dylan Sandberg had another good game tonight. It's interesting. Rick Bowness told us last week that Logan Stanley would get in the lineup because, he said we're going to get him in this weekend. Dylan Sandberg has strung together 2 really good games in a row. He had another big couple shot blocks on the PK. He's kind of doing everything you could expect, and I don't know how that would play now if Rick Bowness says to him, you're out of the lineup, Dylan, just because we want to put someone else in. I think Dylan Sandberg on the PK, he had that covered and then some. He's been doing some good work.
Ken, do you have anything?
Yeah, bang on. I mean, I hate to piggyback. I mean, outside of, my fallback would be, Connor Hellebuck had the Jets covered in his first game back after coming back from illness. But I'm with Mike on Sandberg. I mean, I asked Rick Bowness about him yesterday during the Avail, and Rick thought it was his best game. I mean, thought it was his best game of the year, and he wanted to see him stack it, and that's exactly what he did. So I'm with Mike. I mean, I don't think that Rick can afford to take Dylan Sandberg out of the lineup, even though he probably wants to play Logan Stanley. Sean, you talk about this all the time. It sends a bad message. I mean, doesn't it? I mean, I don't think you can take a guy who is one of the Jets' best defensemen out of the lineup just because you don't want someone to sit too long. You got Kyle Capobianco, plays once a month. So, again, the Jets are going to have to find room for Logan Stanley. But, I mean, right now, I think you got to keep Sandberg in the lineup.
I'm all for that. Guys, you know what we got to get to? We got to get to the line blending.
Sorry, did you post the...
Oh, sorry.
I think you did at the beginning. Yep, sorry.
Yeah, okay. Well, we'll launch into that. But I want to get quickly into... here, let me do our read for our friends, the Kenny and Renny OGs at the Johnson Group. You won't find 2 businesses with the same challenges, but you will find 30,000 businesses with Chambers Plan employee benefits proudly administered by our friends at Johnson Group. Chambers Plan is Canada's #1 plan for employee benefits because it evolves with the way you work and live. The plan is run as a not-for-profit designed specifically to support small businesses, and its unique pooling strategy keeps rates stable, so you won't have any surprises at your next renewal. Chambers Plan now comes with professional consulting on key financial, legal, and HR issues, and teledoc telemedicine services are included with every health option. See how Chambers Plan can benefit your business by visiting chamberplan.ca. And I should announce that our lamplighter winner from our last show is Tracy Evans Burr. So Tracy Evans Burr, I think that's your full name. Buer. Give me a dingle or send me a line at SN Sean Reynolds. Direct message me. Send me your full name and an email address, and I will send you a voucher for your frosty, delicious Lamplighter Amber Ale, an 8-pack of that from our friends at TransCanada Brewing Company. Okay, guys, I want to get into the line jumbling that happened there. And it's funny, Kenny, you talked about that earlier on. Like, I think the thing is, if you don't want the lines blended, then do something, right? Get out there and do something. And the Jets aren't doing that, right? So their coach is trying to get something going here. Now, this is what I thought was interesting because it was just before they left on the trip that Rick Bowness was talking about, well, the lines, whatever, trios don't mean as much. It's the pairs that are important, right? And when he was referring to that, he was talking about Pierre-Luc Dubois and Kyle Connor, and then Mark Scheifele and Blake Wheeler. So I thought it was extremely interesting that he broke...
Oh, sorry. Yeah, that he broke them up. Sorry, yes.
Yeah,
he changed his tune on the weekend and used Perfetti with Mark in that same sentence. But yeah, I'm with you.
Well, right, but I think it's interesting that he went from like these were the two blocks, these were the dynamic duos that he was going to build around, and all of a sudden now he's gone in a different direction. Now I want to be the first one to say this. I like it. I like what he's trying to do with the lines because I think it's changing things up. It's adding more directness. I've always been a big believer, and I've always thought the Jets, like the way that the Jets always seem to have 1, 2, 3 phenomenal players on one line. I don't think a lot of teams do that. I think the vast majority of teams in the league go with 2 really good players and then a guy who can grind, a guy who can get the puck, a guy of lesser talent, lesser skill, lesser ability, with the confidence that those duos that he's referring to can help float that player and make that player a better player. The Jets always seem to need 3 phenomenal players on the same line. I like this idea. I like a coach saying you should be able to get this done. And by going out and putting Ehlers and Blake Wheeler on a line with Adam Lowry, I like the chances that you're going to start getting Lowry scoring again. I like all of that. Now, it didn't really work out tonight, it seemed, although I thought Perfetti played a great game tonight. I thought that they created some stuff alongside Mark Scheifele. Maybe it's a situation where they need more time. But, Mike, I wanted to get your take on, A, the line blending, what he's trying to accomplish with it, Rick Bowness, and, B, if you saw signs that he may be accomplishing that in this game tonight or potentially going forward.
Yeah, I mean, I agree that the worker bee, with the skill is kind of a tried and true concept. I just, I don't know that the Jets have a Zach Hyman in the fold to put with your McDavid and your Draisaitl, if you will, or even your Michael Bunting, right? Because that is a formula that certainly teams have employed with great success. And I think one of the things Rick Bowness was trying to do with his group, we saw it, guys, over these last few games, where this is a team that tries to outskill other teams sometimes. They overpass, they get too cute, and they stop playing that direct game. They're not scoring from the dirty areas. They're not getting the rebounds, the deflections. So he's trying to get them back to basics. Totally get that. Ice time is always a concern. And, you look like the other night, Nikolai Ehlers was 11th of 12 forwards. Even tonight, guys, in the first period, Nikolai Ehlers was 10th out of 12 forwards. It just, and he's one of your dynamic game breakers. And when he's barely playing as much as your Barons and your Stenlund, and, Sean, I go, did you notice with 2 minutes and 20 seconds left today and the Jets down a goal, they had Morgan Barron and Carson Kuhlman on the ice?
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah. I mean, I took a look at that situation. I just thought it was, Kuhlman seemed to be going with speed. I think Kuhlman was matching the intensity and the speed that Rick Bowness thought his team should have. It's none. It's where offense goes to die. I mean, the one goal, I think he has an empty net goal this year, and then he's also got that one that he drove and it fell off his stick and found its way to the back of the net. I know what you're talking about. I thought it was maybe time for a quick message from the coach.
Well, that may be a part of it for sure. We know Rick Bowness at times has sent messages, and I suppose if you want to look at it, you're trying to you lose a battle to win the war, right? Is that the mentality here? Short-term pain, maybe long-term gain. I don't know.
I think it's this. I think that he's trying to send a message in that moment to his team to try and spark them. But the issue that, and maybe this is just what it looks like when teams aren't playing well, but the issue to me is that you've got a coach that through his line blending, through player usage at that time of the game, through not using Nick Ehlers as much as, what you're talking about, it just seems to me that Rick Bowness is constantly trying to send messages to his team. And what happens if you have to send in-game messages is usually it means that the message that you're trying to send in the dressing room, in the film room, just aren't getting through. And that's a problem. And it's especially a problem at this time of year when teams are supposed to be ramping up and getting better for the playoffs, not getting worse and not getting messages from their coach in the middle of a game that they're down and losing it.
So let me just throw out one hypothetical here. What if Rick Bowness in sending message to his team, what if he's also sending a message to his GM? And that
Yeah.
message is being, we need some help here, guys. You know, and look, Rick Bowness, he doesn't suffer fools, and I fully expect he would tell Kevin Cheveldayoff, you know, he's not going to be afraid to walk up to Kevin Cheveldayoff and say, we need this or that or this player. So I don't know that he would just be trying to do it subtly, or, you know, I think Kevin Cheveldayoff would be well aware of what Rick Bowness would like for this group.
Oh, yeah.
The fact is, you know,
Already.
we're down to now 12 days and counting, and I do wonder if the urgency gets amped up a bit here, especially, you know, if there's another not so good result tomorrow night. Can you, if you're the Jets, can you afford to just wait till trade deadline day to make a move? If you're going to make a move, I mean, you could be, as you said, Sean, earlier, and Kenny, you could be in a wild card spot, you know, by the end of this week. And I don't know if you can afford to wait. So it was interesting. I saw Kevin Cheveldayoff was on the phone downstairs here at the arena after the game tonight. I'm sure he was checking in on Dubois and Ehlers. I'm sure he's got a lot of things on his mind right now. Probably a lot of GMs in his ear as well.
Yeah. Ken, wrap up your thoughts on it. Then we're going to give a shout out to Sweet Lou, and we'll do the home field. You guys got a train to catch.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's just interesting times. I mean, we've talked for months. We talked about December. We talked about January, 16 games, 15 games. We're going to learn a lot about the Jets. We're going to learn a lot about them in this 10-day stretch that includes today. They're playing against, there's 5 games of those, 4 of the 6 now against playoff teams, and the other 2 games are against the New York Islanders, who think they are still in the periphery of the race. How the Jets perform in those 6 games leading up to the trade deadline are critical for them. How they respond. I mean, yeah, they're still saying all the right things. In terms of the line blender, I don't know. I sort of, you didn't fully say it, but I think what you were hinting at, Sean, and I think this is how I feel. I don't want to put words in your mouth. I understand why Rick Bowness wanted to try to get something out of the third line. But once again, it was Nick Ehlers' ice time that was being penalized.
I know.
To try to help someone else. And right now, the Jets need Dubois and Ehlers going. Now they don't even know he's available. But to me, that's an issue, right? I mean, this is a guy who doesn't. Mike mentioned it. I mean, he's not getting enough ice time. I talked about it the other day in my column. I mean, if the Jets want to go on a run, they need Nick Ehlers to be dynamic. And right now, you got to find them line mates that are going to work. So I'm in favor of the blender. I just don't know that I saw, the signs of chemistry that are going to work long term. But that's because a bunch of the top guys weren't going tonight.
Right.
And it's funny, Mark Scheifele, some people are on him. Mark was one of the only guys actually skating well today. His shift length, was it too long? Yes, 100% it was. But he was one of the only guys generating offense. So I understand, A, why he was out there more, and B, why Rick Bowness wanted him out there. But at the same time, they need more guys going. And nights like tonight, when they have too many passengers, you can't compete with an elite team with too many passengers. And that was evident again today.
Give a shout out to our main man, Sweet Lou, before we shut things down here, Kenny.
You bet. For the folks if you need any needs met in the real estate market, contact our main man, Lou Ferlin, at Royal LePage Dynamic Realty, 791-9971, or at the office, 204-989-5000. His email is lou@louferlin.ca. That's LOU@LOUFURLAN.ca, and Lou's email is www.louferlin.ca. Excellent realtor, excellent human being, and excellent supporter of the community, and we thank him for his support for this program.
Absolutely love Sweet Lou. Okay, let's get into our home field Dig Deeper award for the evening here. Just give me a sec to find this. I like this one. The way that we're thinking it's going to happen here, because maybe, to your point, Kevin Cheveldayoff needs to get going and make a move here before anything happens. But Partisan Paul says if the Jets go 4-3 in the next few games, I'd back Chevy buying at the trade deadline. But what if they go 2-5? I can't help but think this, you guys. Like I get it. I get the idea is that the Jets need help, and I understand that. I think that they need help, and I think the way you help them is go out and do that. But I can't help but question whether or not Kevin Cheveldayoff, or maybe even more importantly, the owner of this team, are questioning whether this is a group a core worth going all in for, because this is the one thing, guys. I think coming into this season, Kevin Cheveldayoff said, I want to get a look at what this core looks like under a new coach to see if they're worth investing in one last time before we tear it down. One of the reasons why he may not have moved Pierre-Luc Dubois. But if they're coming into this situation right now, and if you're Mark Chipman and you're thinking, listen, in this offseason, what's it going to look like? Are we going to tear down and move a bunch of guys out and then bring in a whole bunch of futures and start working on a young team? Or are we going to throw our hat into the ring right now and try and win because the West is weak? The way it's weak right now, I think it's a really tough spot the Jets are in right now. I think it's extremely tough, and I think Partisan Paul has got this right. I think Kevin Cheveldayoff has been out looking for long-term solutions. If he can't find them, he has to decide, do short-term solutions, are they worth it and worth negotiating the future for? Well, if the Jets go 2-5 over the next little while, that's going to be a very hard question to answer. That is your Home Field Dig Deeper Award winner of the game. Partisan Paul, you know what to do. Get a hold of me at SN Sean Reynolds. Send me your full name and send me an email where I can send you your voucher for your very own Home Field Kenny and Renny Dig Deeper shovel. Thank you for that. Thank you, everyone, tonight. Thanks, Ken. Thanks, Mike. I know you guys have a train. I'm just going to say this quickly before we go. If you appreciate the conversations happening in these spaces, please appreciate our sponsors who fight to keep these conversations happening. That would be, for us, Vittorio Rossi, TransCanada Brewing, Johnson Group, Lou Ferlin, and Home Field. Thank you so much. We're going to be back at it right away tomorrow as the Winnipeg Jets play the New York Rangers on Monday Night Hockey. It is a big one, ladies and gentlemen. We'll be looking forward to talking to you after the game. See you later.
Okay, see you, buddy. Do you mind downloading?
Whoa, hold up.
The Kenny and Renny Show is brought to you by Home Field, Cambrian Credit Union, Lou Ferlin, TransCanada Brewing, Vittorio Rossi, and Johnston Group.